Hello, everybody. I am definitely not Markiplier, and this is definitely not a Gucci shirt. And we are reviewing this album that is called Golf U.S. Golf '95 from U.S. Golf '95. That is not about U.S. Golf '95 because U.S. Golf '95 does not exist. I'm really bad at these intros. I'm wearing this shirt today. Um, it's a it says authentic original brand on it. You can't see my air quotes. God fucking damn it. But I know for a fact it's not an authentic Gucci shirt, but it looks like one. And what could be more vaporwave than mocking capitalism? Let's fucking go, gamers. Anyways, I'm gonna step back a bit. There we go. That's a bit better. Um, so this album is a vaporwave album. I came across because Pat Chennington actually mentioned it in one of his videos, unrelated, off the cuff. He basically mentioned that I don't know. He described it in a way that made me interested to check it out, right? And from how I was describing it, I expected something more minimalistic and stuff. And it was definitely that. And I was very surprised because it was very minimalistic, and simplistic, and not really anything going on much about it. But it somehow wasn't boring. It was very immediately entrancing and meditative, and it's really lowered my energy today, to be honest, because it was so relaxing. And despite it being so simple, it didn't come across boring. It just came across, like I said, meditative. And it's an odd album. I feel like it could be doing some things better than others. The first track, U.S. Open, is basically, you have your very MS DOS, Pong like synths come in, and definitely an interesting way to start out this album, which I assume is trying to, like most vaporwave albums in this style, mimic, you know, an older program of sorts, specifically a golf game soundtrack. Especially when you look at the album cover and the titles of the songs. But U.S. Open, I like the track a lot, but there's this really odd, I think it's a koto or something. It's just an instrument sample, or it's a MIDI instrument that doesn't really go with the rest of um, with the track sonically. It kind of stands out a bit too much, but that's really it. The rest of the songs are actually quite good, and they have a much more cohesive um, sonic palette to them. I do think some songs, when you compare them back to back, like Start Scream and In Woosnam, they have different vibes going on, and I feel like they could be a bit more um, collected. I guess I feel like they could be more cohesive. Like they could maybe be on different albums or something, but they're not. They don't really take away from it that much. I just feel like they could be a bit more similar. Um, they don't necessarily stand out, but they're almost there. Um, Besides that, they're still good tracks. They're all very simplistic but meditative. But I feel like when you have albums that are focused on ambiance like this, it's very hard to basically. Excuse me. It's very hard to balance the ambiance because when you have a melody or a whatever part you're repeating, right? There's gonna be different. It's gonna be different. It's gonna be different for each case, but you have to know basically how long to have a part go on. And like some of these parts are just right, some are a bit short, and some are a bit long. Some are way too long. I feel like In the Rough is a bit long for what the track is. It's a good track, but by the end, I'm kind of questioning: is it gonna go anywhere? And it doesn't, and it ends. That's at the end, so not too bad. The last track, Golf '95, is almost 7 minutes and doesn't really do much for those 7 minutes. So I definitely felt that feeling way earlier on, closer to maybe like the 2 to 3 minute mark. About halfway in or a little earlier. You know, so it was definitely a bit. I wouldn't call it a slog. It didn't feel bad to get through, but it just it was okay. You know, I feel like the synth on it, doing the main melody, could have been a bit quieter because it was so loud and taking the forefront of the mix, that even though there was some stuff here and there changing the background, it didn't feel like anything was changing, and it kind of got a little annoying as the song went on, but not really that bad. On the contrast, Hole in One, the track right before it, leads off the track before that, Pause Menu. Pause Menu ends with these certain synths kind of dipping out, and then Hole in One comes in with the same synths, but, and although it's some nice continuity, you get this other synth, that kind of jumps in right away and kind of throws you off, and the track's over. Because it's 13 seconds, and that's, really short. So, I want to like it, but if we're looking at it realistically, you have basically half the song is good, half the song is throwing you off and questionable, and 13 seconds isn't long, but the track as a whole, it's just, half and half is not a good ratio. Besides that, I find that, I think it was the segues from US Open to start screen to tee off, maybe in the rough too. I find, oh yeah, so US Open, that one does not fade out, but it does kind of, the orchestration, what's the other word? No. The arrangement kind of peters out, gets more simplistic, and start screen starts, and it feels like like it's continuing on and building up from the last track. That one fades out and then goes in the tee off, and I feel like those tracks definitely flowed much better than Pause Menu to Hole in One to Golf 95. But then again, this is a soundtrack, not necessarily a cohesive listen. But because it's not a real game, at least I don't think it is, you could still have a cohesive listen, I guess. But if you wanted to give the illusion of making a soundtrack, you wouldn't want to add cohesive, unless you wanted to make a good soundtrack, which this probably isn't. I don't know. It can really be led up to interpretation at that point on, on if it's a bad thing or not, that the album is a bit disjointed here and there. But, I guess it's more authentic in a way, sure. But enjoyable, doesn't really make that much of a difference on it. I feel like, you could make the excuse of, well, again, like, you could just mimic a better soundtrack, but you don't really have to. I don't know. It's a weird, complicated thing that, honestly, I'm overthinking, but hey, that's what I do. I have anxiety. That's my job as a human being, is to overthink and to worry. You tell me don't worry, it's my job to worry. 7 out of 10. I'd probably say 6. I don't know. I feel like there are very little complaints that I have about this album. I feel like I'm nitpicking. But on the other side, I feel like, although there are only like 2 complaints I have, 2 or 3, and there are very little complaints, they do impact the album quite a lot. Despite that. And that's that. And I have a cat in the hat. Okay, we're gonna cut this off here. Yeah. God damn it. Yeah, I'd probably say like, a 7. If I want to be pretentious, I think is the right word, I could say, well, it's not blowing my mind. Well, even if this did fix all the problems that I had with this album, it'd still be like a 9 or a 10 or so, because I don't think every album has to blow your mind or has to be doing something new and exciting. It can do what it's doing and do it well. If it's not broken, don't fix it. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be this, grandiose thing, So even if it fixed the problems it had, it'd still probably be like a 9 or so, maybe a 10, I don't know. But, if I wanted to go that route of, it's not doing anything really cool, then yeah, it'd be a 6 or a 5. But I'm not going to do that, It's doing what it's doing, and it's doing it pretty well, with little tweaks that could be done here and there. So 7. I'll say 7. I think that's pretty fair. And that's going to do it for this video. Now, if you like what I do here, you can subscribe if you want. What I try and do is I try and cover artists, bands, music genres, etc., that are a bit under the radar. I find a lot of the critics and music reviewers now tend to cover currently releasing stuff or their video essays about obscure music, and I feel like there's not really any people going over reviews or reactions for obscure, worthwhile stuff, So I have some vaporwave stuff on my channel. I have some Vocaloid, some noise, just some, bands that could definitely deserve more recognition, like Birthday Massacre. I'm actually going to plan to do some videos on Lucid Planet and Tala eventually, and Richelieu, etc., etc. I have some anime stuff on the channel as well. I'm going to do more of that as well. Some soundtracks I want to get to, etc., etc. So if you want to discover some interesting music, this is the place. I do cover some high-profile releases if they interest me enough. I did. I'm a fan of Slipknot, so I reacted to the Great Chapter, which got blocked. So I have a review on here, but then I have the full reaction on Patreon for free, so you can watch that if you want. Also, some other stuff that's up there, like Pendulum and Aphex Twin, Radiohead, I think, has In Rainbows is there. I'm gonna release my own music soon as well. Not soon, but I'm gonna release my own music at some point, either through this channel or through another channel. But I'll post updates here about it. So if you want to get notifications for that, also subscribe. And that's going to be it for my dumbass. Thank you for watching my dumbass.